You know, we all thought AI was going to make us smarter, right? An incredible new tool to just augment our intelligence. But what if the exact opposite is happening? New research is starting to suggest that the very AI we designed to help us think might actually be encouraging us not to think at all.
So, we have to ask a really uncomfortable question here. Are these incredibly powerful tools slowly kinda hollowing out our own minds? Okay, let's dive into this and see what the evidence actually says.
Just think about it for a second. A decade ago, you probably had what? A handful of phone numbers memorized? You knew the landmarks and the main roads of your city by heart? And today? Well, we just outsource all of that memory to our contacts list and our navigation apps. This isn't just some small change in habit. It's a fundamental shift in how we're using our brains every single day. And look, this isn't just a hunch or a feeling. Recent scientific studies are giving us a pretty startling look at what's actually happening inside our skulls when we offload our thinking to AI. So get this, a fascinating recent experiment took a group of students and gave them a pretty straightforward task. Just write an essay. But the researchers, they weren't really interested in the essays themselves. No, they were interested in what was happening in the students' brains while they wrote. And they measured it all using an EEG machine. So here's the setup. They split the students into 3 groups. Group 1 got to use ChatGPT, Group 2 could use a good old Google search, and Group 3, well, they had to rely completely on their own knowledge. No external tools allowed. A really simple, elegant way to compare the cognitive load. And honestly, the results were just shocking. The group that used no tools, they showed high brain engagement, as you'd expect. The Google group, they landed somewhere in the middle. But the ChatGPT group, wow, their brain activity was significantly, dramatically lower than the others. And we're not talking about a minor dip in activity here. The researchers' own assessment was incredibly blunt. It was as if their brains were, and I'm quoting here, literally switched off. And believe it or not, it actually got worse from there. The study went on for months, and a really clear pattern started to emerge. The ChatGPT users, they just became progressively lazier. It got to the point where they were just copying and pasting the output. And the craziest part, when they were questioned later, they couldn't even recall the basic points of the essays they had supposedly written. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's just one study with students. But it wasn't an isolated incident. A major study from Microsoft and Carnegie Mellon backed this all up, looking at 319 knowledge workers to see how AI use was affecting them in a professional setting. And their conclusion was totally unambiguous. The more a person relied on AI, the lower their critical thinking scores dropped. It seems that when we let AI do the heavy lifting for us, our own problem-solving muscles, they just start to weaken. Okay, so it's fair to ask, isn't this just the same old panic we see with every new piece of technology? I mean, it's a valid point, but the answer might be a little more complicated this time. This kind of anxiety is nothing new. Seriously, over 2,000 years ago, Socrates was worried that the act of writing would destroy human memory. Then, in the 1970s, educators were panicking that calculators would make kids unable to do basic math. The fear that technology is going to make us dumber? Well, that's a very old story. But here's why this time might actually be different. Researchers have identified something they call the Google effect or digital amnesia. It's basically a cognitive shortcut. Our brain, because it knows that information is just a quick search away, doesn't even bother storing the information itself. Instead, it just remembers the path to the info. You know, which website to visit. We're training ourselves to remember the address, not the actual knowledge. And this outsourcing of our mental skills, it's not just a bad habit. It can have profound physical consequences on the very structure of our brains. Okay, take navigation, for example. Just finding your way around is one of the most cognitively demanding things we do. It heavily exercises a part of the brain called the hippocampus, which is absolutely crucial for memory and spatial reasoning. There's this famous study of London taxi drivers from the pre-GPS era that's the perfect example. To get their license, these drivers had to memorize 25,000 streets. I mean, what an incredible mental feat. And when they scanned their brains, their hippocampi were physically larger than average. In stark contrast, people today who constantly rely on GPS often have weaker navigational skills because that part of the brain is just being underutilized.
And here's the really crucial point. The hippocampus doesn't just handle navigation. It's also vital for forming our long-term memories, for imagining future scenarios, and for connecting totally different ideas. So when we weaken it by outsourcing our sense of direction, we risk weakening all these other critical abilities as well.
So, yeah, it's a classic case of use it or lose it. But this doesn't mean we have to boycott AI entirely. Not at all. The solution really lies in using it more mindfully, so that we augment our intelligence without just replacing it.
The key concept we have to grasp is this. Our brain is designed to be efficient, sure, but it only grows through challenge. It needs friction. A problem to solve, a concept to struggle with. If every single task is made effortless, no real learning ever happens.
This is especially dangerous for people who are early in their learning journey. Look, AI is great at automating grunt work, summarizing documents, writing basic code, drafting emails. But that grunt work, that's the training ground. It's where you build the fundamental mental models and skills that eventually lead to true expertise. So how do we get the best of both worlds? Well, here's a simple framework. First, think of AI as a co-pilot, not an autopilot. You are still in command. Second, you have to consciously protect your grunt work. Do the hard stuff yourself first to build the skill, then you can use AI to refine it or speed it up. And third, be intentional about training your brain, just like you would any muscle at the gym.
And that really is the perfect metaphor to end on. Your brain isn't like a hard drive that gets full. It's a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. Every challenge, every problem you solve yourself, that's another rep.
AI offers a world of just incredible convenience, a world without any friction. But as we all embrace it, we have to ask ourselves, what is the true cost of a frictionless mind? It's something we all really need to think about.